What's going on, Salt Strong Nation? I'm out here in Baffin Bay today going to target some redfish and trout. We've got a full moon. I've not been on the water in a couple days, so I know it's probably going to be a bit of a tough bite, but I've got some plans for how I'm going to target these fish. I'm going to use some bigger presentations, see if there's any big trout still hanging around. Again, it is a little late in the day, but it seems like the sun might not be out for a while, so I'm going to jump in the water and we're going to see what we can find.
All right, I'm just going to do a little bit of searching around with the paddle tail here. See if I can't find some fish. I'm not quite sure if they're in deep water, shallow water. I'm standing on the edge of a bar right here. There's a deep drop off on one side, deep drop off on the other side. I'm gonna kind of fish all zones and see if fish are holding closer to the bay on top of the bar or in this gut next to this shoreline here. Oh, wow. I didn't even realize I had a fish. Hot dog. That was pretty quick. All right, so second cast, which is good because I do not like first cast fish. Nice trout there. Get him back. Woo. So that's 2 casts towards the shoreline, picked up a trout. So I'm still gonna feel out the bar in the open bay, but that's a little bit of data over here. So I think I might dedicate more casts towards the shoreline in that gut, but still gonna see if there's not some more fish over here. Oh man, I was not even finished. Man. Looky there. Another trout on the paddle tail. Again, casting towards the shoreline. These guys aren't exactly the size that I'm looking for, but they are here, which is good. There we go. That feels like a decent fish right there. All right, so we're up near the shoreline. I've got a feeling this might be a decent sized trout here. If it's a redfish, it's not too big, but I've got a feeling this is a good trout. The way it shook its head. Oh, that might be, yeah, redfish. Hot dog. He's just a little cold. It's a nice one too. Come here, bud. So, per the usual trend, we've got trout in slightly deeper water, and Mr. Redfish here up towards the shoreline. You can see all the birds over here, you guys. If you ever see a bunch of birds sitting on a shoreline, it is probably a good idea to check out why they are all sitting there. Now, they're clearly not feeding, but the fact that they're hanging around here means there's probably a bunch of guys like this swimming around that were feeding earlier. So they're gonna go and hang near those fish until they start feeding again. They push bait to the surface, and then those birds will resume feeding. You'll see them in the air. But that does not mean that just because the birds aren't up, there's not a bunch of fish swimming around. So that's kind of why I started walking over here. I saw more and more birds landing on that sandbar, and as you guys can see, picked up a pretty nice red doing it. So I'm gonna keep searching around with this paddle tail, and then I might switch to something where I can move a little bit slower. It's a little bit cooler than the last time I came over here, and while I was catching them pretty good on a paddle tail, I think a slower presentation might be better. But if they keep hitting the paddle tail, I am gonna keep using it. There we go. Nice. That might be another redfish there. Whew. Alrighty. Yeah, I think it is. Not as big, I don't think, but still happy to catch some reds. Yeah, they're tucked up against the shoreline. So, you know, I talk a lot about fishing wind protected shorelines in the winter, but it's a warmer day. You guys can see the winds blowing into the shoreline. This is a normally wind protected shoreline on north winds, which is what really cools down the water. North winds usually signal that there's some cooler temperatures moving through, but on those days where it's a little bit warmer, fish still will hang out on those those northern protected shorelines. That's really more about what it's looking for is northern protection, because south winds usually mean warm weather, which is what we got today. And as you guys can see, we've got a bunch of trout and redfish that are hanging on this shoreline here. There he goes, off again. Yeah, I might keep this paddle tail on if they're gonna keep hitting it like that. See, bait right there. In the wintertime, if you guys see any kind of bait, that is huge. Bait is in very, very low supply during probably November to, depending on where you live, maybe February, March. So if you see any kind of bait, man, you gotta be fishing there. That's probably where the predators are. They will literally follow bait schools around. As long as they're in areas that there is stable, warmer temperatures, they will stick with those bait schools and they will jump around and follow them, because that's how they're gonna steadily source meals in the winter when they don't really have the energy to search around and hunt. They will literally just stalk those bait schools the entire winter season. And if you guys are wondering how I'm retrieving this paddle tail, basically all I'm doing, casting it out towards the shoreline, slow roll, covering just a couple feet every few seconds, and then stopping, letting it drop, maybe adding a pop or just a little bounce in there to get some attention of a fish that might be slowly following it or triggering it. Strike by doing that little pop bounce, and that's actually how I was getting the trout. The reds seem to be preferring that kind of straight retrieve, so that's exactly what I'm doing. It's just that little pickup, pause, maybe a pop, reel, pause, resume reeling. Just something to get that lure moving just enough where we're covering ground, but we're also not zipping by these fish, because they are probably a little cold stunned right now. Today is a little bit warmer than it's been, but you know, that's not too common in the winter time, so they're going to be up and a little bit more active, especially with this full moon. I would have thought it was either going to be feast or famine, and so far it looks like we're doing pretty good, so hopefully I'm not jinxing myself saying this. All right, so I'm gonna move my boat a little bit further down just because I'm starting to get kind of far away from it, but then I'm gonna get back against that shoreline and see if I can't find some more fish before it gets a little bit nasty out here. I just looked at the radar on Smart Fishing Spots, and it's gonna get cranking here in a little bit, but I've probably got another hour or two of fishing, so gonna keep on moving down. All right. Let's go ahead and start moving down this way. Mullet right there. Fantastic. That's exactly what I'm looking for. There we go. Oh boy. What do we have here? Could be a redfish or a black drum, I would think. Yeah, Mr. Redfish. Not too big, but still fun to play with. Got a little tangled up there. Still on this shoreline over here. There you go. Yeah, it's pretty easy. Just keep walking this and covering ground. That's why I like search baits like this. If you guys don't know, this is that mulligan paddle tail that we've got coming soon. It's got these really cool little dimples in it. Helps it cast further, gives it some pretty realistic looking appearances in the water. And I like that it's a little bit heavier than our 2.0. I can get it a little bit further. So when I'm covering all this ground, it's really, really helpful. So you guys are probably thinking, man, he is fishing super shallow for winter time. Again, we just had a couple weeks of cold weather, and we've had, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 days of, you know, upper 60s, low 70s. And what that's going to do is bring fish out of that deeper water up in the shallows to kind of sun. If you guys think about how like alligators get up and sun themselves, fish are cold-blooded just like, you know, gators. And what they'll do is they'll get up on these shallow flats where there's lots of bait and a lot of sun and exposure to the sun, and what they'll do is sun themselves, get a bunch of energy, it'll kick their metabolism back up, and they'll feed and await that next cold front up in the shallows. And then the moment that that front hits, you know, especially the day before, you want to get out and fish it, because they're up here going crazy on bait, because they can feel with that pressure change that there's about to be some really cold weather coming through. They feel that wind start to shift, and they start feeding really heavily, stocking stocking up on some extra calories, extra fat, because they don't know when that next storm is going to pass, or that next front's going to pass. And then once that cold hits and that front hits, they're going to jump right back into that deeper water. So 4 or 5 days after a front, you know, I'm not terribly surprised that we've got a bunch of fish up on this shoreline. I did think they were probably going to be a little bit further out, but really cool to see them up here feeding real crazy like. If you guys can actually see, I'm wondering what size bait we've got out here. Oh, perfect example right there. Big baits. Again, I'm not fishing anything close to it, but look at the scales on that mullet and the scales on that mulligan. Pretty similar. Looks like a smaller finger mullet. Probably not going to see any of the redfish or trout that I've caught eating on that guy right there, but I'll leave him for nature to take its course. But yeah, you guys can see bait fish presentations are probably the ticket right now. I do like using shrimp presentations in the winter time, but it seems like right now these fish are kind of keyed in on that bait fish lure. So until they tell me something different, and again, if I come out here I'm not catching anything on a paddle tail, I usually will switch it up. But right now what they're telling me is they're in on bait fish, and seeing that mullet right there kind of locks it in for me. Oh, I saw you. There's a redfish over here. I saw its back, but I lost track of it. That's what I get for not being on the water for a couple weeks. I lose my redfish eyes. Where did you go, little one? There you are. Oh, right there. Oh, so close. Oh.
So it actually happened again as I was walking up to make this cast. If you guys look right between those two grass patches, there is a school of redfish. You'll see them spook off right about now, as you can see. So walked right up on them, didn't even notice it, but was able to make up for it on this next cast.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Very nice. That's a decent looking red right over there. Oh, buddy. I think he's wrapped up in my line. Oh, now he's free. I was walking back to the boat. I kicked up a bunch just now. You can see where they all left their little cloud of dust, but this guy must have not been hanging with that group. You'll see fish start to kind of school up once it starts getting cold. I've not seen many schools yet. That was like the first one that I've seen. But most of the fish I've been picking off, I feel like have been loners. Not really schooled up in the real traditional sense, but still very fun to find them. So if you guys can take note of one thing that you've seen in this report, it's that as the day has progressed and it's gotten warmer, I have moved closer and closer to the shoreline. This is gonna happen in the wintertime. Fish are gonna, again, move from deep areas to shallow areas to warm themselves. I cannot stress how important that is, because later on in the afternoon, you might be fishing a dead zone out there, and if you fish here too early in the morning, you're probably not going to find fish. So you need to know what time of the day you're kind of fishing. Again, once that sun comes up, starts warming the water, start moving your way closer to the shoreline, because fish are going to want to get up there, they're going to want to warm up, and they're going to see if they can find themselves something easy to eat, which is exactly what I've been doing with these redfish. If I wanted to go catch trout, I'd probably scoot out, I don't know, 50 yards. They do tend to hunt a little bit deeper than these fish do, because they feed upwards, not, you know, to their sides like redfish do. So if I wanted to go catch trout, I'd probably just scoot out a little bit further, but there's a bunch of redfish up here, and that's just what I'm concerned with right now. So again, move shallower as the day progresses in wintertime so you can stay on those fish that are getting up to warm themselves and find some easy meals. Alrighty, I think I'm gonna get rolling out before this wind picks up. I don't want to be here when it does. I've got about 20 more minutes, but I would say for sure, definitely a productive day. I'm going to talk a lot more in the post-trip analysis about why this spot was productive. So if you guys are watching this on YouTube, know that we have a full insider report that actually shows exactly where we fish, tons of extra tips and bonus tactics that we do not share on the public side of things. You guys are just seeing this on YouTube, so you know that all the stuff that we have in the Insider Club actually shows us catching fish and teaching. So I would highly recommend, if you want to see how to catch fish like I did today after not being on the water for several weeks, not knowing what the trends were, not even knowing if there were going to be fish in this area, I would highly recommend, if you want to try and replicate the success that I had here today, you join the Insider Club, watch the reports, and learn a little bit more about your area, because we have a lot of really great regionalized tips, tons of really helpful courses that are going to help you understand the species that you're after, and so much more. I'm going to get home and get to editing this report, get it out to you guys here soon. So thank you again so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the Insider Club soon.
And if you're new to Salt Strong, just know we're the #1 online fishing club out there, because we actually guarantee we're going to help you catch more fish with our courses and in-depth tips, and also our new Smart Fishing Spots app that actually shows you where the fish are feeding at any time of the day and follows exactly where they're going to be. It also is going to help you save a bunch of money on tackle, and you're going to meet a lot of new fishing friends fast. So thank you again so much for watching, and we're hoping to see you in the Salt Strong Insider Club soon.